Hi, Springcreek family. This is Pastor Keith. I just wanted to make a very special announcement today. As you know, of course, our nation and our country and even our state and city are dealing with the ramifications of the coronavirus. As a result, we as a church, in considering what is in our best interest, what's in the best interest of you as our people, we have made a decision to be just an online church this weekend, the 14th and 15th, and next weekend, the 21st and 22nd. We will not be having services in the main worship center, but instead it'll be exclusively online. So you can tune in on Facebook and watch us at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning, or you can see us on our YouTube channel. Now remember, those messages stay up. So if for some reason you can't watch at that time, you can come back later, you can engage again. After 2 weeks' time, we will reevaluate, so we'll keep you very informed, both through all of our media channels, through email, and of course you could call the church at any time to find out what our status is in the moment. You know, a big part of this is not just our concern for the safety of every Spring Creeker, but also in cooperation with what's going on in our state, to try to do things to mitigate the worst of this virus and its spread. You know, they say in a pandemic, one of the things that happens early on is there is a massive, quick uptick. And what health professionals are talking about right now is flattening the curve so that we don't have this massive infection at one time that has the potential to overwhelm our medical infrastructure, but instead do things that help with containment. So we practice things like regular hand washing and social distancing and avoiding really large crowds so that we don't have a sudden massive amount of people infected. Now, I know that this can also be a very fearful time for people, and fear makes us do really crazy things like hoarding and turning into ourselves and not thinking of our neighbor. It so happens that this time in the church calendar we call Lent, and many of you are engaged in Lent. It's a really great time in preparation for Easter. Many of us fast. We fast from things so that in the absence of that thing, whether it's food or an activity, that we would seek God. Well, think about this as the opportunity for the church to really be the church, because see, we're still the church even when we aren't gathered on the weekends. We're the church 24/7. We are God's church. We're God's family. You know, just last week in the message, we talked about what happened in history in the 2nd century. There were actually plagues. There were pandemics that happened in the Roman Empire. And in the 2nd century, we learned that doctors fled the country for fear of contamination. But where the health professionals abandoned the community, believers rushed in to make a difference. I believe personally this can be the church's brightest hour. It can be an opportunity for us to really be the church, to be the church to our neighbors, especially those who are most vulnerable, those who have a pre-existing condition like diabetes, or those who are elderly, or those who have heart disease. They're especially prone to the more difficult and challenging aspects of this disease. I want to read a passage to you. It's in Isaiah 58. God says, "Is this not the kind of fasting I've chosen? To loose the chains of injustice, to untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them and to not turn away from your own flesh and blood?" And then he makes a promise. He says, "Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard." I love that passage because what it tells us is even in times of fear and famine and challenge, that when the church really is the church, when we don't move in the direction of fearing and hoarding, but instead in the direction of faith and giving, that God can really bless us, that his glory shines brightly, that our own healing transpires in that time. So I just want to encourage you to be aware of your neighbors and those who may be suffering at this time, for those who may be going without meals, for those mothers that are single, that are trying to provide and their kids are now out of school. How do we help them? Maybe help them with childcare. Let's just be the church and watch for opportunities in your network, in your sphere of influence, to be a blessing. So church, be safe over the next couple of weeks and in the coming weeks, but also let's love our neighbors like we never have before, and let's be the church.